Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Anar and I'm a self-taught software developer. And on this channel, I help you break into and grow in the tech industry. Today I wanted to cover what the job market looks like for software developers, as well as some pretty radical changes I have been seeing in the job market here in Canada after the COVID-19 pandemic started. In the past, tech giants like Amazon and Google have been opening satellite offices here in Canada to work collaboratively with their San Francisco offices. It's no secret that these tech giants have been doing very well for themselves during this COVID-19 pandemic. And I've noticed that they started making some key changes to the way they employ software developers, which I will cover later in this video. Overall, the COVID-19 pandemic has flipped a lot of people's lives upside down and left a lot of people unemployed and even homeless. While this was a tragic event for the global population as a whole, I will be talking about the impact COVID-19 had on the tech industry from the perspective of a software developer in Canada. I know a lot of software developers that lost their jobs during the lockdown and a ton of businesses that had to shut down operations. Startups were definitely hit the hardest because they depend on funding from investors, and investors were holding on to their cash because the future was unclear. Finding a job back in March or April was definitely hard. But since then, the job market has definitely warmed up and companies are starting to ramp up on hiring again. In the initial job market transformation for software developers, everyone was ordered to work from home temporarily. Everyone working from home actually became a part of a social experiment to either prove or disprove the age-old saying that developers hear from their managers that face-to-face communication is very important. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, it's basically the go-to argument that any manager makes for why a software developer should be forced to come into the office to do their work. When software developers work in the office, they spend most of their time staring at their screen, either Googling, emailing, or coding, which makes it pretty apparent that they could easily do this at home. When the developer actually brings this up to a manager, however, they're quickly told that face-to-face communication is essential for collaboration and teamwork, which is why all employees have to be physically present at the office. With this pandemic, however, companies were forced to test this theory, and predictably, there was no significant issue or drop in productivity or teamwork. Most developers I know actually say that they work harder when they work from home, because they feel like they need some results to actually show that they're doing the work that they're supposed to be doing when they're at home. When you're physically in the office, however, all of your coffee runs, smoke breaks, and conversations at the water cooler still feel like work because physically you are at work. Anyways, the results of this experiment is that people are still working hard even though they're working from home, so now companies don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on an expensive office in a high cost of living city. A lot of companies are also realizing that working remote is a huge perk for a lot of software developers, especially those that have lengthy commutes to work. This brings us where we are today, which we can call the second stage of the transformation of the job market for software developers. In the last 6 months, some of my developer friends had their employment contracts changed for new ones, which allowed them to work remotely indefinitely. I actually have two colleagues that moved away to different provinces where real estate prices and cost of living are significantly lower. And by keeping their Toronto salary, they're able to live a more comfortable life than they would in a high cost of living city like Toronto. I think we're moving to the next stage because I've noticed some companies, including Dropbox, are starting to advertise themselves as digital first or remote first workplaces. This means that coming into the office is completely optional and you can work from anywhere in the country and maybe even anywhere in the world. What I think is going to happen next is that more and more companies are going to adopt this remote first or digital first workplace policy, and that eventually this will become the norm. At the end of the day, if company A has this policy and company B does not, then company B is not competitive. What this will mean for software developers is that we will literally be able to work from anywhere we want. This is a huge deal for software developers specifically, because the cities that have the best job prospects for software developers are also the ones with the highest cost of living. Aside from remote work benefiting developers from a work-life balance perspective, highly desired jobs at tech giants such as Facebook and Uber will become accessible to more developers because you will no longer need these companies to have an office in your city in order for you to be able to work for them. Also, since paying for an office is one of the biggest expenses that a business has, being able to cut this expense out will allow for more businesses to survive, stay afloat, grow, and essentially grow the job market and hire more software developers. What I think is going to happen with salaries is that companies are going to start adjusting them according to your cost of living of where you're located instead of where the office is. I've seen companies that were remote first before COVID do this, so I imagine others will follow in their footsteps. I think in the long run, these changes will allow people to have a higher quality of life through better work-life balance, because spending hundreds of dollars a month and hours a day on commuting will no longer be the norm. People also won't be forced to move to another city just to get a software development job. Overall, I think you can see that I have a pretty optimistic view of the future of the software development job market. If you agree or disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments. That's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video, drop the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.